There is a specific moment in the recovery from a narcissistic dynamic that nobody really prepares you for. It's not dramatic. It does not usually come all at once. It's more like a random Tuesday afternoon. You are doing something ordinary, and something in you goes quiet in a way that it hasn't in a long time. And you realize you believe yourself. Not because someone confirmed your experience. Not because you gathered enough evidence. Not because you finally got the admission that you were looking for. Just, you know what you know. And you are no longer arguing with yourself about it. That moment, as quiet as it is one of the most significant things that can happen in a person's healing. And today I want to talk about what it takes to get there, what actually shifts, what the real work of coming out the other side looks like, and why this matters not just for you personally, but for something much bigger that is happening collectively right now. This is a follow-up channeled message from the message that I posted a few days ago about the empath and narcissist relationship dynamic. The message continued, so here's the other part of that. And today we're going to talk about why that dynamic exists, what gaslighting is actually doing, and the awakening layer. So, this is after all of the things happen that we talked about in the other video. When you leave a narcissistic dynamic, whether this is a romantic relationship, a family member, a friendship, a work situation, there's a specific kind of disorientation that comes with it that very few people name accurately. People expect you to feel relieved, free, like a weight has been lifted. And sometimes you do feel those things right away. But underneath them, or sometimes instead of them, there is something harder to describe. A kind of sense of being lost. A quietness that feels unfamiliar rather than peaceful. An absence of something that was taking up enormous space even while it was harming you. Here is why that happens. When you are in a dynamic like this, a significant portion of your mental and emotional energy is consumed by the relationship. Monitoring, anticipating, managing, walking on eggshells, processing what happened, preparing for what might happen next, trying to figure out what is real. And let's be honest, that is exhausting. But it is also, in a strange way, organizing. It gives your nervous system something to orient around, even if that something was painful. So when the dynamic ends, that organizing structure disappears. And your nervous system, which has been in a state of chronic activation, does not know immediately what to do with this new quiet. This is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is not a sign that you should go back. It is your system doing exactly what a system that has been under prolonged stress does when the stressor is removed. It takes time to recalibrate. Be patient with that process. It has its own timeline, and it, just like anything else, is not linear. In the other video, I talked about how gaslighting targets self-trust specifically. And now I want to go deeper on that here because I think it's the most underestimated part of the recovery. Most people, when they leave these dynamics, focus on processing the events, the specific things that happened, the specific ways that they hurt, and that processing is necessary and real. But underneath the events is something more fundamental that also needs to be reclaimed. Your relationship with your own knowing. Over time, in a gaslighting dynamic, you develop a habit, almost unconsciously, of filtering your own experience through someone else's interpretation of it before you allow yourself to trust it. You feel something, and before you let yourself fully feel it, some part of you asks, but what would they say about this? Am I seeing this right? Is this real, or am I being too sensitive? And that habit does not disappear when the relationship ends. It runs on its own. And many people spend years after leaving these dynamics still second-guessing themselves. Not because of anything in their current circumstances, but because that internal gaslighting pattern got installed and nobody helped them see it. So what does reclaiming self-trust actually look like in practice? It starts small. Noticing when you feel something and then immediately question it. And choosing deliberately to stay with the feeling for a moment before reaching for the question. Not suppressing the question, just feeling first. Trusting the initial perception before you start to analyze it. It looks like making small decisions from your gut and letting them be right. Not grand life decisions at first, but small ones. What do I want for dinner? Do I feel like talking right now? Is this conversation draining me? Building evidence for yourself that your internal knowing is reliable. It also looks like noticing when you feel something is off before you can name why, and honoring that signal rather than dismissing it. The body is always telling the truth. It knew before your mind did in the relationship. It will know before your mind does in every future situation too. Learning to trust that body knowing is one of the most important things that you can do in recovering from this dynamic. And it also looks like, and I say this gently, being willing to be right about the hard things. Sometimes self-trust means arriving at a conclusion that is uncomfortable, about seeing someone you love, about a situation you wanted to be different, about yourself. Being willing to see clearly, even when the clear view is hard, that is what fully restored self-trust requires. I want to spend real time on this one because it's the piece that I see empaths struggle with the most, well into their recovery, and that is the confusion between compassion and compliance. So here's what I mean. Empaths are extraordinarily good at understanding why people behave the way they do. You can trace the wound. You can see the history. You can feel the pain that created the pattern. And that understanding is real. It is not denial or rationalization. It is genuine empathy. But somewhere along the way, many of us were taught, explicitly or by example, that understanding someone's pain means that you're obligated to accept the behavior that comes from it, that compassion requires staying, that leaving means that you have failed at love. I want to be very clear about this. Those are not the same things. You can understand exactly why a person behaves the way they do and choose not to be in a relationship with that behavior. You can have full empathy for someone's wound and require that they treat you with basic dignity. You can love someone and walk away from the dynamic. You can forgive someone and never speak to them again. Compassion does not require proximity. Forgiveness does not require relationship. Understanding does not require acceptance of harm. This distinction, for many empaths, is the thing that finally sets us free. Because we have been carrying guilt for leaving, for having limits, for no longer being available in the way that we once were, as if having a self is a spiritual failure. And I want to say this as plainly as I can. Having a self is not a spiritual failure. It's actually a spiritual requirement. You cannot love from emptiness. You cannot hold space from depletion. You cannot be a genuine presence for anyone, including yourself, if you have traded yourself away in the process of being compassionate. The invitation here is to let compassion be large enough to include you, not instead of others, but in addition to them, starting with you, because you are also a being who deserves care. You deserve to have your reality honored. You deserve to exist fully without that existence being a problem. And that is not selfishness. That is basic dignity. And basic dignity is the foundation that everything else gets built on. I want to paint a picture for you of what it looks like when this work is done. Not as a destination that you will arrive all at once, but as a way of being that starts to become more and more natural the more you practice it. On the other side of this dynamic, when the self-trust is restored, when the compassion includes yourself, when the pattern has genuinely shifted rather than just relocated, you are still an empath. That does not change. You still feel deeply. You still see what's underneath people's presentations. And you still love with your whole self. But now there's a different quality to how those gifts move through you. Before, the love was available at any cost. It would bend itself into whatever shape was needed to keep that connection going. It would sacrifice clarity for harmony, truth for peace, and self for belonging. But now, it has a spine. Not walls, not armor, not the protective shell of someone who has decided never to be hurt again. A spine, a core, a place inside that knows what it knows and will not negotiate that away regardless of how the pressure comes. And here is what I find remarkable about this. The love does not become smaller with that spine. It becomes more real. Because it's no longer performing, it's no longer managing, and it's no longer holding itself hostage to someone else's stability. It is just love, given freely because it's genuinely felt, not because it's the price of belonging. That version of you is also extraordinarily magnetic, not because you're playing a role, but because there's something unmistakable about a person who knows who they are and does not need you to confirm it. People feel that. The right people, the ones who are actually ready for the kind of connection that you're capable of, are drawn to exactly that. The dynamic that used to attract people who needed a mirror changes, because you are no longer unconsciously offering yourself as one. You are offering something different, genuine presence. And genuine presence calls in genuine presence in return. I want to close this message today with the bigger picture, because I think it's important and I think it changes how you hold your own healing. The work you are doing, reclaiming your self-trust, learning to include yourself in your own compassion, seeing through the illusions that you are operating under. That is not just personal healing. It's a contribution. Right now, collectively, we are in a moment where the veil between what is real and what is performance is thinning. Where illusions that have sustained certain dynamics in relationships, families, institutions, and other systems are becoming harder to maintain. Where more and more people are having their perception clarified and arriving at a point where they simply cannot unsee what they see now. Every empath who does this work becomes a different kind of presence in the world. Not louder necessarily, not more aggressive, just more clear. More grounded in their own knowing, less available to distortion, And that clarity, that groundedness, that capacity to be fully present without losing yourself, it is contagious in the best possible way. The people around you feel it, not because you announce it, but because you embody it. And embodied truth is the most powerful transmission there is. This is the ripple. The empath who reclaims their self-trust becomes the person who makes it safe for someone else to trust themselves. The empath who learns to include themselves in their own compassion models what that looks like for everyone watching. The empath who stops performing love from depletion and starts giving it from wholeness, that person changes the quality of every relationship they touch. You are not just healing yourself. You are writing a template for what love can look like when it does not require anyone's erasure. And the world needs that template right now more than it has in a very long time. So if you are in this process, wherever you are in it, whether you are still in the dynamic trying to get your footing, or fresh out of it trying to find your equilibrium, or well into the recovery and recognizing yourself in what I'm describing, I want you to know you are not behind, you are not broken, and you are not too sensitive. You are doing one of the most important pieces of work available to the human being, to all of humanity right now. And the part of you that already knew that, the part that sent you to this video today, that part is right. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment below. I would love to hear your experience. Tell me where you are in this, what's landing, what's still hard for you, and what has shifted for you. I read them all and I will respond. And thank you for listening. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll see you in the next one.